Greetings from my basement. Once again, today we're going to talk about chapter 9, managing conflict in relationships. I don't know if I've explained this to y'all or not before, but a lot of times when I have class, real students in class, I pass out a tube of toothpaste in the groups. Each group gets one. And I tell you, your objective is to get all the toothpaste out of the tube as quickly as possible. Discuss how you're going to do it, make a decision, and you got 5 minutes. So you figure out what you're going to do. And I say, okay, I get my phone, say go, and I start the timer. And somebody says done. And then I say, okay, that was just the first part. Now the second part, I'm going to restart the timer. When I say go, put the toothpaste back in the tube. And I say go, and people start trying to figure out how to get toothpaste in the tube. And then I stop them because I really don't want you to get the toothpaste back in the tube. But the analogy that I'm trying to convey, and like I said, I may have mentioned this before, is once it comes out, communication, words, they don't go back in. You know, there's an old saying, you can't unring a bell, and it's pretty much the same thing. So when you are dealing with conflict, remember the toothpaste. Once it comes out, it's out. Now, there's many ways to express tension in a relationship. Daggers. You know, that look. When I did my research on my dissertation, one thing that I noted was a lot of blind people that they were both sighted when they got together. Now one was blind. A lot of the things that they miss are the look. You know, and that look from your significant other may be, come here, baby, I want you, or stay the hell away from me and don't talk to me. And a lot of that is communicated with the eyes. Silence. You know, there's a saying, you cannot not communicate. When you're trying to talk to somebody and they're silent, they're communicating something. They may not be paying attention, or they may be angry. Walking out. You know, if we're trying to have a conversation, or we're trying to deal with conflict, and one of the people walks out, sometimes it's the best thing you can do before you say things you don't want to say. But it expresses tension. And slamming and doors and hostility are another way to express tension in a conflict. And the thing about it is conflict requires interdependence. You know, if you don't have anything to do with one another, it doesn't really bother you per se. Now, some people would argue that, you know, like road rage, they cut in front of me. You know, so what? You know, just let it go. You know, you don't have any interdependence with that person other than you're both using the same roadway. But if they're going to be driving that bad, let them get away from you. A perceived incompatibility of goals. You know, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to get there. Well, I want to get there this way, and you want to get there that way. Or you know, my goal is for financial independence, and your goal is to have all these luxuries around the house. So a lot of times the incompatible goals, you know, we only have so much money. So how are we going to find this? There's a need for resolution. You know, if you have those separate goals, you need to resolve them if you want the relationship to work. How do you manage those different goals? You have to remember too that conflict is natural. I mean, you're not the same people. You are two different people. You were raised two different ways. Culturally, you're different. Uh, you're going to have some conflict, and it's natural. But how you express it is what, and how you resolve it is what the key things are. Now, expression could be overtly or covertly. Overtly means in the open. You know, you didn't like that, and you told me you didn't like that. And covertly is, for lack of a better term, or actually a perfect term for it, is passive aggressive. You know, you act like there's no, I'm not mad about anything, but you do stupid little things that are designed to irritate the other person. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this, and the book talks about them. One of them is called blemish, and you know and the book has a pretty good explanation of it. You focus on one thing that's wrong instead of everything that's good. You know, when you're passively aggressive at somebody, and you know, how do I look in this? Well, you know, the suit looks good, but it looks like you've gained a little bit of weight. You focus on that one thing that's wrong instead of focusing on the good aspects of it. Another one is, now I've got you USOB. The person you are in conflict with, or you, looks for that one thing, that one mistake, that one error, and they focus on it. The book uses an example of somebody assigning a task to somebody else that doesn't have good attention to detail skills, and once they give it to them, they point out everything they missed. Another one is, mine is worse. We see that all the time in people, especially I've noticed, especially with older people talking about physical ailments. You know, yeah, I got a bad knee. Yeah, but I got two bad knees. You know, it it's you're trying one-upsmanship. And another one is, yes, but. This happens all the time. Uh, when somebody asks for your help and you try to give them your help, and then they always have an excuse for what's wrong. Yeah, but I could do that, but. Yeah, I could do that, but. And then they blame you for not helping them, when in reality you were trying to provide help, but they were always coming up with an excuse for why it would not work. Culture affects conflict in a great deal. You know, conflict is culturally dependent. How you were raised in the society you were raised in tells a lot about how you deal with culture. In the West, you know, I hate the generalizations of this, but in the West, we're individualistic, we're aggressive. You know, I've got to do this for me. And by doing it and being that way, we lose concept of the us thing. The East is more culturally, we have to include, but saving face is important to them. You know, they can't necessarily say that they were wrong, because then they'll lose face. And it's not always about winning. A lot of times it's about saving face. Now, we all know that genders are different. And according to the textbook, men are generally more coercive than women are. And conflict affects men physiologically more so than women. Blood pressure goes up and that type of stuff. Now, conflict can be well managed or not. You're going to have conflict. How do you manage that? Excuse me, is something important that you have to learn to manage it well. And if your goal is to promote closeness, then you will work on managing conflict to where you grow closer together. On the other hand, many relationships are at a point where they're ready for it to be over, but they're not willing to accept it yet. And so they do things that will tear the relationship apart uh, instead of bring it closer together. You know, they might do what aggravates their significant other intentionally, because I want to do this. I'm going to do this. You know, I like to go hunting. A lot of times, you know, I still have enough sight that I can see, but I hunt on my own land. And a lot of times my wife will want to go do something else. And so the thing is do I promote closeness and go do what she wants to do? Or do I say, to hell with it, I'm going to go do what I want to do? And if you try to promote closeness, it generally brings especially if both partners are trying to promote closeness, it brings a relationship closer together and it's well managed. If one or more partners don't really care about closeness, then they'll tear the relationship apart. Conflict actually can be very positive in a relationship. And it I know it sounds strange, but having differences can cause you to do a few things. It can make you grow as a person. You know, I I don't like liver. My wife likes liver. So I learned to like liver. I grew. I'll tolerate it. I don't really like it, but I tolerate it. We learn different things. We learn how to handle situations differently. We learn how to appreciate different things. I love classical music. My wife doesn't care for it, and we've learned from each other. It deepens your insight. If you have conflict with a significant other and you're willing to resolve that conflict, it allows you to see from the other person's perspective. And being able to see the other person's perspective allows you to see the bigger picture. You know, a lot of times I have tunnel vision. Y'all know that it's a legal thing. I mean, it's an actual thing. But a lot of times we get tunnel vision in how we look at stuff. And if we have conflict with somebody and we're willing to work through that conflict, it gives you a bigger picture. I can see things differently. This wasn't well, it was an interpersonal relationship because of being a friend of mine. But I was in the Army and I grew up in the South and I had a rebel flag hanging on my wall. And this black guy I was in class with, we were in school at the time, he was over in my room, we were drinking beer, and he kept looking up at the flag and looking up at the flag. And it was like, what's wrong? And he told me his perspective of it. I took it down and never put it back up because I never saw somebody else's perception of what that meant. And our relationship was close enough. We were friends, is all we were, you know, but I wanted to understand what was bothering him. So we have a couple of different orientations in conflict. Actually, there's three. You can win-win, you can win-lose, or you can lose-lose. Let's talk about lose-lose first. If in a conflict you are both so set in your ways and you're not willing to give, then you're both going to lose. We could, on the other hand, have a win-lose situation, you know, where I got what I wanted and my wife didn't, but that's okay because, you know, I got what I wanted. And be honest with you, I mentioned it, I think, in last week's video that a lot of times it's going to be it's not going to be 50-50 in a relationship all the time. A lot of times it's going to be 199 or 0-100 and 100-0. So sometimes it's going to be I'm going to get my way, and sometimes she's going to get her way. In reality, or in theory, it should work out to where you both get what you want about an even amount of time. But the best thing is if you can both get what you want out of that situation and have a win-win situation. I want to go out to dinner. She doesn't really want to go out to dinner. But, you know, I really want to go out to dinner. Well, I don't feel like going out, but I don't feel like cooking. Okay, well, let's go out and you pick the restaurant. So I got what I wanted. We went out to dinner, and she got what she wanted. She didn't have to cook, but she got to choose the food that she wanted to have. And that's really simplistic. It gets a lot more in depth than that. But if you understand the concept, then you'll be able to understand the situation. Now, there's different responses to conflict that you can deal with. One of them is exit, walking out, or mentally checking out. How many times have you been in a conflict with somebody where you just weren't really paying attention to what they were saying? Yeah, okay, go ahead. Or you walked out of the room. Neglect. you know, ignore, minimize, or avoid. A lot of times that in my relationship with my wife, um, there's things that bothered the hell out of her. I could neglect it, ignore it, minimize it, and avoid it, or I could adapt to it. And one of them, and I don't know if I've mentioned this or not in the past, but was which way does the toilet paper roll on the holder? Now, I'd put it on there and I didn't really care if it went over the top or went around the back. If it went over the, if I hit it and it didn't come off, I'd hit it the other way. My wife, on the other hand, would get really bothered by which way the toilet paper roll was supposed to be. So to her, it goes over the top. So I had a choice. I could neglect it, ignore it, minimize it, avoid it, and put it on there any way I damn well pleased. Or I could grow and put it on there the way she liked it because it really didn't matter to me. Loyalty. If you want to preserve the relationship, what's the cost? What's the cost and reward of it? I responded in that particular situation with loyalty. I really didn't care which way it went. It didn't cost me anything to put it on one way or the other, but the reward was she was happy. She wasn't complaining to me because I put the toilet paper on the roll on there wrong. And a lot of times in a relationship, that would be the old saying, the straw that breaks the camel's back. There may have been something else really bothering my wife, really bothering my wife, really bothering my wife, but she didn't say anything. But when she went in there to use the bathroom and I put the toilet paper on there the wrong way, it really pissed her off. And she came out of there raising holy hell with me about how I put the toilet paper roll on there wrong. And until we got through communication and found out that really wasn't what was bothering her, that's just what set her off. And don't get me wrong, I could get set off just as easily on something stupid as well. I'm not trying to say that I'm perfect and she's not. There's a lot of times where little things she did bothered me and it added up and added up until one point in time I just couldn't stand it anymore. Voice. Address the conflict directly to resolve the problem. If there is a problem, use your voice, use it in a productive manner to voice what's going on. And once again, don't make it about them. You make me angry. We've used this example before. I get angry when. So as soon as you start pointing the finger at them, it doesn't help to resolve the conflict directly. An unproductive pattern. There's many unproductive patterns in response. Preoccupied with self and disregard of others are the main points of it. If I always make it about me, it's about me, it's about me, it's about me, we're not going to have any good patterns to resolve conflict because I don't really care about what she feels. Now, when you have a conflict, there's 3 different stages according to the textbook. The early stages are the most important. Within the first 3 minutes of a conflict, you're going to set the tone, whether it be positive or negative. You can set the tone in a negative manner. You make me angry, and you do this and you do that, or you can set it in positive. I really get upset when I'm legally blind. So it upsets me when things are left out. And I realize that I do it sometimes as well. But when you put your purse down the middle by the chair, and I trip over it, and I've done it a dozen times, it gets aggravating. So you realize I can't see. So how can we work together to fix this where things aren't cluttered? The middle stages will fuel the fire. The middle stages of an argument, after the first 3 minutes or so, if you still have that back and forth of it's you, it's you, it's you, it's you, and neither one of you can say, well, what can we do? It's just going to make it it's going to either fuel the fire and like throwing logs on the fire and make it worse, or if you start pulling back in those middle stages and stay focused, you can help the conflict resolution process. Later stages often is a downward spiral, especially if you're fueling the fire. You know, you get madder, you get madder, you get madder. And have you ever been in an argument or a conflict resolution with your significant other, and after, you know, a while, couldn't really remember why the argument started? Or, you know, we had an argument last week. Well, what was it about? I don't know. That's because the early stage was set poorly. The middle stage fueled the fire and it went into a downward spiral, but you never really got to where you needed to be. Now, constructive pattern in the early stages, use good communication. Set the stage by acknowledgement. You know, I realize that you're tired when you got home, but, you know, I tripped over your purse again this morning. And what can we do? Middle stage, set the agenda and stay focused. Keep your eye on what your goal is. Don't be going off on these different tangents. And later stages, attention shifts to finding the resolution. Instead of, in that later stage, finding a downward spiral with a destructive pattern, a constructive pattern, you'll try to find ways to fix it. Now, conflict management, look for the relationship level of the meaning, not the conflict. You know, we're together, we're a couple, and we want to continue being a couple. You know, our vows is, you know, till death do us part, yada yada yada, good and bad. So, you know, how do you get there? Don't look at this conflict. Look at the relationship level of meaning. Communicate supportively. You know, when I tripped over my wife's purse for the 10th time, you know, she said, I'm sorry, you know, I messed up and maybe I can do something better. Why don't, for now on, I put it on the table instead of on the floor? And, you know, that'd be great, you know. And so a couple of weeks later, she put it on the floor again. I tripped over it again. She'd been doing good for a couple of weeks. Should I get angry because she put it back in the floor after 2 weeks of not putting it in the floor? No. I mean, habits are hard to change. You have to be supportive of one another. Own your thoughts, feelings, and issues. You know, it's my anger. It's my upset. It's my hurt. It's not yours. You didn't give it to me. It's mine. Look for the perceptions. What does your partner perceive the situation to be, and what do you perceive it to be? Try to find agreement between the two of you. And look to save the other's face. You know, a lot of times you can turn a win-lose into a win-win simply by giving somebody an out where they can save face. You know, after 2 weeks and I tripped over it again, it was like, oh, that's okay. You know, you've been doing so well for a couple of weeks. I really appreciate you trying. It's just a hard habit to break, so, you know, let's work together. And my wife didn't feel like I was saying, you know, you ignorant person, why did you do this? Don't you know better? And there's a lot of people that I've seen that are angry, blind people that have acted like that. Imagine how you'll feel in the future. It's real important in a conflict resolution. How am I going to feel tomorrow about this? Remember the toothpaste? It doesn't go back in. So before you start saying things and pointing fingers and being angry, how are you going to feel tomorrow? How are you going to feel the next day? Different guidelines for effective communication. Look at the big picture. You know, it's not just about me, it's our house. It's not just my kitchen, it's her kitchen. It's not just my floor, it's her floor. And to be honest with you, half the stuff in her purse is probably mine anyway. So, you guys ever do that? Have your wife carry stuff in her purse so you don't have it in your pockets? So, look at the big picture. Don't just look at that instance. Timing is everything. You know, what used to drive me up the wall and early in my relationship is something would be bothering my wife, but she would want to talk to me at 11 o'clock at night when I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go do PT. You know, I've been home since 6. Why didn't you bring this up earlier? I was not in any mood to have a conversation about anything or resolve any conflict. But she waited till 11 o'clock at night. And don't get me wrong, I've done that to her too. When she had something else going on, I decided to bring it up at the wrong time. Aim for a win-win. You always want to both win. Now, there's going to be times where it's going to be win-lose. You always want to avoid lose-lose at all cost. But you really want to go for win-win. Honor all three. Yeah, I said 3, you know. Well, interpersonal relationship, me and my spouse. Yeah, but there's one more. That is the partnership, the relationship. Not only is it you, not only is it your significant other, but it is the relationship, and you have to honor all 3. If you don't honor all 3, if you honor yourself and not your partner or the relationship, or you honor you and your partner but not the relationship, then you're going to fail in conflict management. And finally, show grace when it's appropriate. How important is it to you when you are in a conflict with somebody when they show grace in the situation? And think about that. I mean, earlier I said, think about how you're going to feel tomorrow. Think about when you have been in conflict with other people and it was resolved well. Was it because you were being graceful or they were being graceful or you both were? A lot of times your attitude is what allows a conflict to be resolved. You know, if your attitude and roll your eyes, you're not going to have any conflict. I mean, any resolution of the conflict. But if you're graceful, you know, show grace when it's appropriate. Give them their positives. Be humble at times. Because you know what? Sometimes eating crow and being humble is the best thing you can do. So that is chapter 9, conflict resolution. I hope my presentation has been helpful. I really do. I don't know because most of you aren't giving me any feedback. If I need to do something better, explain more, please send me an email, give me a call, send me a text. You got my information. Because yeah, I want these videos to be helpful to you. You could read the chapter, you could look at the PowerPoint, you could probably take the test. But hopefully my insight in explaining things is helpful. And if it's not, let me know. I'll see you folks. Well, I'll be back in chapter 10 next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye, y'all.